What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Mental Liquidity Podcast with your host, Min Kim. This is episode number one. Today, we have with us our first guest. His name is Remy Kim. He's an old friend of mine. I'm just grateful and happy to introduce him today. So, welcome to the show, Remy. How are you doing today?
Great, how are you? I'm Remy Kim, and thank you so much for inviting me.
Yeah.
Definitely a long time listener, first time guest.
Yes. Well, truth be told, we actually had a practice episode before, like 2 months ago, but it was just like a rough draft, and we were all very rusty. So we were having a new one, and the reason why I wanted Remy to be my first guest, like I really wanted him to be my first guest, was because um I was thinking about like why. Like I was trying to find the genesis of my interest into podcast and what my first podcast was. And in retrospect, that was Remy's Freakonomics podcast.
Oh,
Remember you were listening to Freakonomics in middle school?
yeah, of course. Like
Yeah,
those
and like that was
yeah.
yeah, and I listened to some of his episodes over his shoulders, and come to think of it, that was like my first podcast. So I thought it would be very monumental for him to be the
Mm,
first guest of my podcast because he was the first person to introduce me to the world of podcasts. So uh, I'm very grateful. I'm so thankful for you to come into this podcast. Remy, I definitely want to touch on your mindsets and what you're thinking these days. But before we get into that, like I just want, can you just take us back to the start? So you grew up in Korea. So how was your childhood? Like what was your dream that you can remember?
I mean that goes back, I guess. Um, I guess growing up until like my third grade or fourth grade, I don't think I had like a set like dream or like an idea of what I wanted to be. I think my first idea of like what I wanted to be kind of came into place in my fourth grade when I first moved to the States with my family. So my family was living in Northern Virginia for 2 years. And during those like initial phases, my dad brought me a bunch of like English books, like really elementary, like first grade, second grade kind of English books to for me to read. And one of them was a book on International Space Station and astronauts, and
Oh,
which kind of blew my mind because I mean, yeah, it was definitely mind blowing in the sense that there are all these people who pursue exploration just for the sake of it. I guess in some sense, also for like more scientific, rigorous, more like research kind of related tasks as well, and kind of looking into what they do and kind of being in the frontier of humanity's like knowledge. I think that kind of what really kind of brought me, and obviously the sense that like you could kind of you have to live in zero gravity for like months. You have to be prepared for it. I think that kind of like was a thing for me. Something kind of that gave me the motivation to actually pursue something that's not has been done before.
so you want to be an astronaut or like an astrophysicist?
Astronaut back
Oh,
then,
you want to
like
be astronaut,
yeah,
astronaut.
so back in my fourth grade, fifth grade, astronaut. But honestly, it was a doomed dream to be
Why?
honest, because I already had my glasses on from my second grade,
Oh,
so kind of sad. But
due to biological reasons, you
yeah,
had to give up
biological
your dream.
reasons. But I don't know. But recently, I mean, I did get an eye surgery, and I got in last sec, not at last sick. And the main reason because last sick, like there is a high probability that it might actually pop back up, like during your daily lives, last sick, because like it kind of makes a small scratch on your eye. Whereas like last sick, you kind of just like melt it. So I'm still kind of counting on that there might be some technology that could put me out in space still with last sec on. So
Yeah, it's
that's a
feasible. There's
yeah.
still a chance.
Hmm.
So, like besides your dream, like what kind of a student or kid were you during your childhood
Um,
or your adolescence?
I guess I was a very obedient kid, obviously. Um, Obedient kid, but also very like who'd love to go out and like challenge himself at the same time. I think I was kind of always motivated by my parents to kind of go out there. For example, in those like class president elections in the first semester, like the beginning of the semester, my mom would always like tell me just go out there, do anything. Just get yourself out there and try it for yourself, right? I think that was one thing that kind of motivated me. But at the same time, I was very mo obedient to my mom, especially obviously, and also being raised in a Christian family on my dad's as well as my mom's side. I think like I kind of internalized a lot of these kind of these values, like Christian values of being obedient, being giving to also people. So like in a sense, I think that kind of formulated my childhood and my adolescence as well. Mm,
Yeah, I can agree to that because we met each other at middle school. I think it was
mm.
like seventh grade.
Yeah, seventh grade.
Yeah, and you were always like some sort of a president, where there was like a class president or the whole school president. You were always into something. You were proactive, and yeah, I didn't know that was came from an influence from your family, but
Well, it definitely
yeah,
did. I mean,
yeah.
and it wasn't really grounded on anything. They just kind of just pushed me at. I mean, for example, it starts from like these little things. For example, my mom brings me to these like lectures, for example, in museums or whatnot, and like these people like in those lecturer kind of um like puts it out there. Like, are there anyone who wants to try out like solve these quizzes and whatnot? And my mom would always kind of push me, raise your hand, just try it out. And I would just go up there, and sometimes I would make it, sometimes I would not. I think those kind of experience kind of built up to kind of making me kind of try on new things, trying to go against my fears and yeah, trying things out.
Are those that part of that characteristic still ingrained in you? Do you think it's still
Yeah,
like
for sure, for sure.
it
Like
composes your life still today?
I think like it kind of is included in one of my guiding principles where if it is a reversible choice or like if it is something that doesn't really kind of affect you in a long term, either it's bad or good, I think it's just better just to try it out. Try it for the sake of the experience itself and kind of like, yeah, reaching, like put yourself in those kind of situations.
Mm.
Yep.
I totally relate to that because like I recently read a book and it said there was a phrase, it's better to do something than not doing anything. So it, like
Of
it
course.
no it
Like
no,
indecision is a cost in itself. Huge cost. Yep.
the book even they underscored it by even taking it to another level. He said it's actually better to make a wrong decision
Mhm.
than not making a decision at all.
Mhm.
Like it
Mhm.
might sound controversial, but
Mhm.
I kind of understood like what the author was trying to convey, that
Yeah.
you have to do something to
Yeah, of
actually
course. Of
change
course.
something in your life. So yeah, 100% agree with that. So
I wouldn't
Jake,
say I was a very decisive person though. I mean, there were a lot of phases in my life I was very indecisive. I kind of wanted to
which phase were
advance.
you do you think
I
you
guess
were
after college,
indecisive
pretty much after college, like, and up
after
until like for the
college?
last 34 years. I mean, there were certain kind of periods in my life that I kind of wanted to explore a bit more before kind of moving on and like making the important decisions. But anyways, yeah, we'll
Yeah,
talk
well,
about that.
but before we talk about that, so let's kind of go with the timeline. So we're
Yeah,
at our middle school, high school, adolescent age. So you were an excellent student, uh, very well deserved, all just proficient uh student as I remember, and you still are t today. So you were accepted to Seoul National University majoring in business, right?
yep,
So in line with what you just said about your family's influence and your like obedient part of obedient kind of personality. Uh, how much of like how much what percentage of you was in deciding to go into the a business major?
Oh,
Right?
so
Was it
like
all you, or was there definitely an influence from your parents?
obviously, I mean, obviously there were a great amount, like large amount of significant amount of inputs from my family, my parents. Um, Not in the sense that they kind of like forced me to choose it, but I kind of was bought into their logic of of majoring in business administration. The biggest one being, I guess, uh, first of all, I mean, I myself was like interested in startups and like starting my own thing, like in high school, back in high school. And on top of that, I mean, I was very, I wanted to be in either business, like study either business or economics. So at the end of the day, I was like choosing between economics or business. And I think the rationale from my dad especially was that like if you want to be a person who wants to be a part of or actually build an organization yourself, you should be having that personal skills, like interpersonal skills, communication skills, which is not really relevant in economics, but I guess it is more included in the administration, business management kind of track. So I think
For
that's
sure.
what I was kind of bought in.
Mm.
Yeah, and I'm pretty grateful to have done that. I mean, given the options that I had back then, I mean, if I had like a full option of what I could actually study, I guess I would go back and study like more science, like more math kind of stuff. But like given those choices that I had back then, I think I definitely made I don't regret it at all.
Mm. So you kind of mentioned it in your answer right now, but so you made a transition into majoring uh, engineering and to
Hmm.
more computer science.
Hmm.
And I can't help but ask, what was that? What was the motive into like? Could you first briefly talk about like specifically what your transition was and
Yeah,
from
of
what
course.
major to what, and what the motive was behind that?
Well, I mean, strictly speaking, it wasn't a transition. I just had another major on my list, and I ended up studying electrical and computer engineering. Um, yeah, which is like more electrical kind of side of the computer, I'd say. And what
But that's
prompted
a
me?
yeah, that's a very, I'm sorry to chime in, but that's like a very rare case, right? Like I don't see a lot of business majors like double majoring in any sort of engineering or science stuff. Like what was in your mind back then?
No, I mean, honestly speaking, I had a couple of my friends in my upper year cohorts who were like doing their dual majors in engineerings. And I mean, there weren't the majority, obviously. There were only
Hmm.
like two or three. But I think and they seemed cool, like what they're learning. And I mean, but like I guess it was only a small part, like those kind of people that I had around me. I think it was more the rationale for me was more in the sense that like I came to college to start my own startup pretty much. That was like what I was mostly interested in. But like looking back myself, I had like nothing to kind of I couldn't really build up a product. I couldn't code anything. I had no knowledge of what like how computers work, for example, how services work, how products are made. I mean, I had a good sense of like what business you could kind of start off, for example, like making platforms. I was kind of well versed in the business kind of startups. Like, what are the business models? Like, that's what I've been studying for my whole 3 years in high school. Like, what are the different business models? What are their revenue models? Like, how do they generate profit? How big is the market? How big is the total addressable market and whatnot? But I couldn't really build a product myself, so. That was one thing. And like looking at all these big tech companies, like big, like legendary, I guess, startups that had been kind of sweeping the markets from like 2010 and 2010s, Facebook, Google. I mean, they're all like very heavily tech oriented companies. So that was also what got me interested. I kind of realized that, okay, I can't do it myself. And if I'm going to be dependent on like other engineers to kind of start my own thing, that's going to be a vulnerability for me as well. So I
Mm,
wanted to
for sure,
internalize.
for sure.
So I wanted to be able to do it myself.
Hmm. Hmm.
So that was one thing. The other another kind of event that kind of prompted me was this event that I had back in Seoul National University. It's called like SNU In program where they kind of send you to each major cities around the world. SNU In Beijing, SNU In Madrid. And for me, I took part in this SNU In Silicon Valley program, and I was actually the first cohort. It was their kind of first pilot program. And it worked out pretty well. I mean, we were staying at Stanford. We were kind of taking their kind of summer kind of program courses, which wasn't really fun. I think a lot of it was BS, but I think the mere fact that we were like staying in Silicon Valley, like Stanford, visiting all these like big tech companies, their offices, talking to these VCs, talking to those founders, I think it definitely kind of resonated with me a lot. For sure. So I think like there I kind of realized that okay, I need to learn engineering, and engineering is like what fuels all this Silicon Valley and whatnot and all these infrastructure. So after I came back, I went to military. I kind of got prepped, kind of studied all these like prerequisites that I deemed was necessary to kind of start my own education in engineering. And yeah, that's how it kind of worked out afterwards.
That's great. Like actually, like I mean, it's easier said than done. Like it's actually, in my perspective, that is a quite big leap in terms of career wise, and it takes great courage to actually make such a decision. But yeah, I remember like when you first said you noted me that you are going to do a dual major in engineering. So I thought, well, it's like it was a wow. Like I thought it was stunning, but at the same time it was kind of yeah, but it was kind of typical Remy because like you were always like you were always always different in some way, and you always had this um
Hello?
you always had your way to like go
Mhm.
through things. So I thought yeah, like you'll do anything well. So I remember having 100% support in that. So
Can you
yeah,
hear me
so
well?
yeah, no problem. But
Okay.
you were saying something?
No, I think it was a bit delayed, like 1 or 2 seconds for the last 10
Oh, it's
seconds or
okay.
so, but okay, good.
Technical issues. It's our first episode. It's okay. It's our pilot episode.
Yeah, yeah.
I'll take it.
Content.
I'll take it.
Okay. Go ahead.
Okay, so you chose this field of engineering, and
Wait, but I do want to know one thing though. So I mean, now that you mentioned, I think there were two things that were, I guess there that I was very lucky to have gone through, which is first of all, I did definitely like forage, like look into careers in finance before I got it, like before I got accepted in the military service. And I started my own like fixed income like FICC kind of finance club. And during that, like I was able to kind of look into the financial industry as well. And I think those kind of experiences kind of definitely helped me in terms of like how the careers kind of look like, what the people over there look like. And I think like early on, I think I was lucky enough to kind of realize that like these kind of lifestyles weren't really kind of ones for me, those career paths. I think that was one thing. Like before my transition over to engineering, so I had my own kind of taste of what it would look like. And I guess the second one was like I had the military service. So I had like 2 years at my hand where I could kind of like use at my own discretion without any kind of like pressure of what I want to do or what I have to do besides like those daily jobs that I have to do during the day. So I think those two things kind of was two things that I was very fortunate to have gone through.
Yeah, and I just want to mention a thing about military. I'm glad you mentioned it because, um, FYI, Korean men they have a mandatory they have this obligation to serve in the military for at least how many years is it right now? It's like 1.5 years to two
Yep.
years.
Back then
Yeah,
it was 2 years for us. Yeah.
yeah. And like people think like there are a lot of mixed views about that service. Like, is it beneficial or is it very it's like is it a setback, like a drop setback to your career? But honestly, I thought gives you like a very good hiatus like during your career because like if you think of it as a marathon, it's kind of like a fixed period of time that you can just like do anything like and like just go th like read all the books you want, try new things. Although it is kind of limited, but like you can think about anything and you don't have to feel guilty.
Hmm.
So I
Hmm.
think like it really depends on how you use that time.
Of course,
And
of
for you,
course.
you use that very wisely, and I can see that.
I hope I did, but I mean, I tried to, but I mean, there were
You
those
did.
like, I mean, I had those times that I kind of was productive. Other periods I wasn't. So
So you did the dual major in during your undergrad, and you had you had a full-time job, right? In the between undergrad and masters. Didn't you, was it
yeah,
a
pretty much.
full-time job?
I describe it as a co-op where like I was pretty much working full time, but I was also like registered in school.
Like what
So
what you what did you do there? Like what did you specifically do in that job?
okay, so yeah, we can talk about that. So for the last 2 semesters of my undergrad, I was working at two different companies, like 6 months each. One at a AI kind of startup. Like they were basically building like B2B like ChatGPT for companies. And after that, I was working at another like crypto like decentralized finance management company, which operated like multiple DeFi protocols, making a good amount of revenue actually. And
Mm.
yeah, we were quite big back in Korea before all the Terra Luna crash kind of happened. So during those like 1 year or like 2 6 months periods, I was listening to like two to three credits per semester, like kind of cramming them all in weekends, and I was pretty much just going to work pretty much every day. Yeah,
It was a busy year for you.
yeah, but it was
So
fun. It was fun days. Yep.
wait, did you already have your plan of heading to the CS Masters before you did any of this work, or was it after you did your work that you thought you had to go and extend your academics?
I mean, it was all happening like simultaneously, pretty much. I mean, for my studies in the U.S., I guess I was getting prepared for it. Even I guess pretty much as I was studying all these engineering kind of disciplines. Um, I've been doing. I was also interning at like a couple research labs at Seoul National University, and I guess back then I wanted to do more PhD kind of studies, like more research. So I think that was when kind of I realized I did want to go to the States, where they had like much more market opportunities, much more like much better research community as well. So that's what kind of prompted me. So I don't know if you remember, but like I was taking like GREs back in like
Hmm.
2021,
Yeah.
which is way before I kind of started my works. So I think back then I was kind of trying to get prepared, see if I have a fit and whatnot. But as I was getting prepared, I didn't want to kind of just like only focus on like research itself. I wanted to like get some more work experience, especially
Hmm.
at a startup and especially at some new industries that are upcoming. So that's how it kind of worked out. But I was applying to all these like colleges while I was working at my first company.
So I think it's now is a perfect time to introduce your master your graduate status. Could you like say it loud right now? You
Stay
are
stay alive. Wait, say it
like
again.
you are like like there's like that full sentence like you're like computer science graduate in UPenn's like I want that full sentence.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm
Yeah,
just
I
like
think
like CS master student at UPenn.
yeah, I just realized that we never actually introduced your this
My current
that
status.
yeah,
Okay. Yeah.
your status. So you're a graduate student right now,
Hmm.
and since it's summer break, I know
Yep.
you're doing another intern on a different company. Could you briefly introduce, like, explain about what you do there
Oh, like
right
in
now?
terms of my studies or like in terms of
Oh,
my work?
well, both. Like, if you can, like, feel free to just you can just say
Sure,
both
sure.
or.
I mean, for the grad studies, I've been doing a bit like mix of both. Like I've been just sitting around and like enrolling in a bunch of classes that I wanted to kind of take part in, like distributed systems or like optimization kind of courses that I really hadn't had the chance to take back in my undergrad. So yeah, I've been like just roaming around all these like different disciplines that I think would be kind of powerful in the future or whatnot. So and I've also kind of been helping out with some research at with one of the professors at Penn. So that's most of the jobs that I do. Um, Regarding work, um, so I mean, yeah, just to give you an update for the last 6 months, I was working at this small perpetual exchange, perpetual futures exchange, like alongside my schoolwork. That was fun. We had like I had so there were three other co-founders who had already been kind of had some who had already raised funds and they were building up their perpetual futures exchange, which kind of really, but their approach was quite different in the sense that they were trying to build an exchange with some more risk-aware, risk engine kind of based stuff. This is a whole new different story. We can talk more
Is
about
it
it.
like related to like the quantitative trading?
Well, yeah, I guess like the making of and the building of the risk engine is definitely related to quant trading and like
Mm.
quant research kind of stuff. Yeah, that's pretty much was the reason why I was kind of very drawn to their product as well, because I think that was like the intersection of crypto and like quant research. So I've been working on that for the last 6 months or so. I kind of moved on, and during the summer, I'm working at a small securities firm in New York, at an ETF desk, ETF trading desk, and what we do basically is just like create and redeem a bunch of ETFs. Given some our clients' orders, or also like given some very volatile markets where we can actually do some market making and make some little kind of commissions or fees out of it. So yeah,
Mm.
or to be exact, like bid ask spreads. So that's what been or our desk is trying to do, and I've been trying to help out with their operations.
So, from what I'm hearing, your related work experiences and what you're working on right now is all like kind of skewed to finance, right? Like,
Yeah.
if you
Now that
had to
yeah,
categorize it, like
yeah,
it
now that
is
I think
focused on
about
finance. Yeah, because like not all AI and computer science is linked to finance, but
it.
so I presume that was it your background in a business major what made you like want to narrow down your field and how
Yeah.
kind of link this AI into finance?
Uh, that is definitely a very good question, I think, and it makes me think. But I definitely say so. I definitely say that like my initial kind of major starting out as a business major definitely would influence me a lot. But I think it's also more from a fundamental question that I ask myself. Like, I mean, we're definitely living in a capitalist society, and what is capitalism? What is capital? And like, how does this society like work around? Like, what are the drawbacks of this of the system? What are the things that we could actually improve, like to make this capitalist society, I guess, more efficient, also more equitable, more fair, all those kind of questions. So I think in that sense, I think those kind of questions always brings me back to like what finance is, like what is the role of finance in society in this world. Yeah, and then I guess for a while I was like doing more like deep learning or like reinforcement learning, like AI, ML, machine learning kind of research, I was kind of trying to get away from it and just focus on those research. But I kind of realized that like I'm not really those kind of like that kind of person who kind of hold on to like those research problems for I don't know years, for 2 years and whatnot. And so I think that's a very good point. Like after that, I kind of realized that AI ML wasn't really kind of relevant to like what capital is, like that those core questions. I kind of shifted back to crypto, decentralized finance, how the blockchain technology could actually disrupt the existing like financial industry. So yeah.
Hmm. Nice. So, What is your this might sound kind of like an interview question, but where do you see yourself in 5 years?
Oh, huh.
I wanted to ask you this.
Wait, but
So,
yeah, sure. I mean, I do have a set answer on that because that's a question that I've been asking myself for the last 3 months or so. I mean, I do ask it like pretty often, but I think that question was especially more relevant to me for the last 3 months. And assuming everything goes well and like it's like the most ideal case, I see myself like running on this, or I guess running my own company, either in Singapore or Korea. Um, and this is a project that I've been working on for the last 2 months or so. It's a commodities related product, commodities market, and I'm trying to kind of bridge it with blockchain technology, in a sense that it could create a more efficient, like more liquid markets, like in the commodities market. So yeah, I mean, I do envision myself kind of operating those kind of businesses globally. Yeah.
so I guess your item is kind of confidential.
Well, I wouldn't say it's confidential, but I'm still like in a stealth mode where I'm still doing my like market research, kind of what is it, validating my hypotheses, gathering some stats, seeing if my all these projections into the future kind of match up or whatnot.
Mm.
Yeah,
I
but
want to
we
like,
can definitely talk about it in length later on. Yeah, in the
yeah,
future.
but like, can we like kind of slightly dive into that? Because like so you talked about commodities
Yeah,
and linking that with blockchain technology.
yeah.
So like, just from my knowledge, like it kind of sounds like like the securitization of like commodity trading. Like, does it have any relevance to that?
Yeah, of course. I mean, it is relevant, but I wouldn't say it as like securitization. I mean, securitizing is a whole new issue. It's a very important issue in crypto, not only in crypto, but also like in the overall financial industry. Like what defines a security and what defines something not a security is a very important question. I mean, throughout the
Mm-hmm.
whole advancement of like capitalist society. And I don't know if you've heard of like SEC or CFTC, like those
Not
guiding
aware of
agencies
it.
in the US. So SEC oversees all these securities market, bonds,
Oh,
equities,
it's like I
derivatives.
know the Korean term for it. Yeah, the
Like I guess the Korean term is 금융감독원,
yeah,
if
yeah,
anyone
yeah,
knows it. But like
yeah.
in the US, it's actually kind of divided between SEC and CFTC, where CFTC is like Commodities Futures Trading Commission, whatnot. So it's kind of and it's 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 been a long debate on, for example, for crypto, like who has a jurisdiction over crypto. SEC's been kind of claiming that they have the jurisdiction over crypto because all cryptos are security. That's their logic.
Wait, but
And
crypto isn't the whole point decentralization?
uh
What right does the SEC have to proclaim that it's their ownership?
Well, that is a good question, and I mean that's a whole. I think this is enough of
Oh,
a
it's a
topic
whole
in
different. Okay, okay,
whole
okay. I hear you.
podcast,
Okay.
but and they have all these like criteria of what makes a security, what makes not a security, and SEC's been kind of polishing that. They have a set record, I mean, set rule of what defines security. They've been kind of expanding it, kind of tweaking it so that they could also kind of encompass and include crypto,
Hmm.
which has been very controversial. Yeah, so the whole point is whether crypto is a securities or not, it's a very ongoing debate. And for me, I'm trying to for me, I guess my logic and my motivation is coming more from the hopes that there could be like usage of crypto more in the commodity sense, not as a security sense, because I don't want to deal with all those
Mm,
those regulatory regimes.
mm.
So yeah, it's my line of logic.
Understood, understood. Yeah, so this might sound very well, it's not inappropriate, but like like hearing from your ideas and what you want to do. Like I just thought of this quote or phrase that I heard um from somewhere, and it's if you want to be rich, don't chase money.
Hmm.
Stand where the money flows. Like stand next to the channel where the money flows.
Hmm.
So I think that could be a useful phrase for you when you are um putting forth your dreams later on.
Of course, of course. Yeah, 100%. I agree. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So definitely support that.
Hmm.
So 5 years, you s- you have a very you envision yourself as like an entrepreneur and you're having your own business. Then uh let's make a huge leap, and I wanted to ask you, what is your final goal or end goal or your mission in this world during your life?
Yeah, I mean, I'll be completely honest with you. I guess the end goal kind of moves around, like every month, every day, every week.
Oh, sure, for
Um,
sure.
and sometimes it's a more equitable society. Sometimes it's just, I don't know, getting a happy life with having chill time with my friends or my family. Um, but I guess the end goal for me is first of all, my approach is more in the sense of um what is what's the point of life? I think that's like the more relevant question to in terms of like getting to the answer to your question. And for
What
me,
is the point of life then?
I think the point of life lies in um constructing your own sense of meaning in life. And regardless whether like throughout all these sufferings and all these happiness and whatnot, um, the key word is like you have to construct your own sense of meaning. And I think that
Mm,
act in itself kind of provides a lot of meaning to life, like the value of life. So I think that's my view of life. And I guess towards that end, I'm still kind of constructing my meaning of life. Like, what is life all about? Like, what is there for me to kind of achieve? What is there for me to construct? And to give you a more kind of more relevant or like daily life kind of answer to your question, I think my end goal that I have in mind is to make my home country, like Korea, a very strong one that would last for centuries and even millennia. And I mean that involves a lot of things. I mean our relationship with North Korea, for example, our low birth rate, immigration policies, like financial industry, like our economic activity overall and whatnot. Um, and towards that end, like I do see crypto as a critical tool in terms of leveraging the Korea's like international status and within the global economy. So yeah, that's kind of my way of constructing my meaning of life, my mission.
you said you use a term like you wanted Korea to last at least a century, but like lasting kind of has a lot of meanings because like you can last being subordinate to like a bigger
Yeah, of course, of
country.
course.
At the same time, you can last being independent and being powerful and having
Yeah,
your own
of
influence
course.
in the world. So, like, what, like, which stance are you talking about?
I mean, obviously, as an independent nation state,
Independent,
like an
independent.
independent nation, as a as a as a society who could actually voice out and like lead the humanities, the history of humanities, I'd say. Um, Very sadly enough, like Korea has always been in within the tornado of international politics,
Hmm.
whether it be
Hmm.
by China, by US, by Russia, by Japan. And I was always sad to kind of read through all those history books and look into that. And I guess Korea, like a lot of Korean people kind of feel as if like yeah, actually I was watching one of these YouTube videos in like 2 weeks ago, and it was something in the lines of he was saying that Korean people are just so or too I wouldn't say too, but Korean people are very accustomed to thinking that um it was always the other countries around us that kind of put us down, that kind of put us into hardships. Like, for example, Japan, for example, the United States. But what a lot of Korean people kind of um,
Missed
don't
out on.
realize is the fact that there are certain decisions that we have to make, like very active decisions that we have to make to actually build our own future and to like build our own future. Um, and I think in that sense, I think the Korean society is very kind of passive in terms of like what kind of future they want to envision, what kind of world they want to live in. They always kind of trying to adjust to what China is doing, to US is doing, to what Japan is doing and whatnot. We've never had that kind of winning mentality, that leading mentality
Mhm.
throughout our history, and that really resonated with me. I mean, I'm not saying the Korean leadership, the Korean government, the Korean society is very passive or very enervated, but I do want to ask my fellow like Koreans out there, like, have you ever like asked those like questions that kind of shaped our future like 100 years out, like 1,000 years out? And I don't think we never did. So and I think like the next 5 to 10 years is going to be very important like phases for us, like phase for Korea especially, in the midst of U.S.-China trade wars and all these like tensions going. Like in the worst case, I like and I don't I hope that it never happens, but like in the case of any kind of war between the U.S. or China, like whether it be in Taiwan, whether it be in Middle East or Southeast Asia, I think it's only a matter of time that Korea also gets involved in the war. And it's also a matter of time that Korea, like the whole existence of like Korea, Republic of Korea, might be wiped of the global maps. I think it is a very like probable um, future. I hope it never happens.
Me
And towards
too.
that end, I think like the next 5 and 10 years is very critical for our nation. I guess that was what I was trying to get at when I was saying lasting nation, because right now we're not even sure if we're gonna survive or not. So
Hmm, hmm.
so yeah, I guess that was like an answer to both of your questions. Like, what do I want to
Hmm,
be in the next
hmm.
5 years? I want to be the
Understood,
one solving
understood.
that question. At the same time, that's also what kind of motivates me, that gives me meaning, or like that kind of provides that mission to everything that I'm doing. So yeah, that's pretty much. I don't know if
Great.
that answered your question.
Yeah, it definitely did. It definitely did. And I can totally relate to that because like I kind of have like this, I don't know, like a dubious attitude towards um like being part of a group or like a community. And like to be honest, like I never actually felt that feeling of had that sense of belonging to like a school or
Some kind of community
like
or group or your
yeah,
friend
like
group.
well maybe a basketball team, yes, but very rarely.
Okay.
But one sense of belonging that I allow myself is the belonging to Korea. Like I am actually very proud of being
Interesting.
a South Korean citizen,
Okay.
and I do believe the power of a nation, like it profoundly impacts the life of the people,
Yeah, the citizens.
and like in like the diplomatic and the economic situations, like it I think it really comes from the power of the
Hmm.
nation. So
Of course.
yeah, so that's why I could totally relate to what you're saying, and
Hmm.
I hope we could be a key player in the next decade on making it possible. So
Yeah, for sure, for
yeah.
sure. Yeah, I'm definitely I'd love to talk to anyone out there, any of the listeners out there who would be interested in solving this
Hmm.
problem.
Definitely.
I'd love to chat with you.
Yeah.
I'm always open. JKKIM123@gmail.com. Please,
What the
please
heck?
reach out to me.
Hey,
No.
nice time, nice one, nice one. You chimed in at the right time. Okay.
But you know what? But speaking of your sense of belonging as a Korean citizen, I think it is actually very hard to find these days in our generations. I rarely find them. Or like I guess like more in the sense of like their sense of affection to the Korean community. And I think it's very hard to find within my friends these days, within our generation.
But is it like we have to distinguish like affection towards the Korean government versus the country itself? Like we have to, it's a distinct um thing.
I'd say I was more seeing it like more in the sense of a community.
Like a
Like
like a conceptual meaning, like a society
like
or
yeah, the Korean society, the Korean
sort of
like community
society.
overall. I guess like it is equivalent, like in a sense, with Korean like Korea as a nation as well,
Mm.
but more in the sense of like the group of people and like the culture that we have or the activity that we do as a group. Yeah, I don't know if that makes sense.
Mhm. Yeah, so I think we still have a long way to go. Yeah,
Yeah, for sure, for
it's a
sure.
marathon, so
Hmm.
we'll get there. We'll get there.
We'll get there.
And I
It's
hope
gonna be a long,
this,
hard process for sure,
mhm,
but
definitely.
we're gonna need a lot of help from politicians, a lot of people from the businessmen, a lot of
Mhm.
people from diplomats, for example, a lot of people
Yeah.
help from,
And you don't have to be
so
Korean. Like we kind of like
of course,
we kind of said like we were trying to exclude the non-Koreans, but no pressure, like no
yeah,
we don't have that stereotype.
mental
Doesn't matter the
liquidity is open to
nationality.
everyone,
Of
everybody.
course, it's open. Okay, so we talked about your visions and your end goals. I want to switch gears and like uh dig into the lighter subjects. So, JK, you're one of the heaviest book readers. Um, uh,
Not sure.
like,
I try to
um,
be one, but I'm not sure if I am.
you definitely are. So, what, what is reading for you? Like, what is reading?
Oh, that is a very original question, I'd say. I think reading for me is, in a sense, I mean, obviously conversing with an expert, having that valuable time to actually sit with a person, with an expert in an area and actually subscribe to their thoughts. This is very valuable. And the mere fact that you can do it with like 15 bucks, like 20 bucks, I think it's just a phenomenal innovation for humanities, I think. I mean, these days I download just digital books, so it pretty much came down to zero. But yeah, maybe, but I mean, no, but like we already have libraries, public libraries, obviously. So like, and we have all these like access to digital libraries. So I think first of all, it's I put it as having a conversation with as those experts. But my second layer is actually, and this is the layer that I kind of feel most happy and like most delighted about is the mere fact of finding the books that speaks to the thoughts that I already have in mind, if that makes sense. So I feel I feel extremely delighted and elated when I actually find a book that talks about the exact like the topics that I have in
Mm,
mind.
mhm,
And this is pretty much the feeling that I have when I, for example, sit down with a person and kind of realize that we were thinking the same thing, right? So, and if I find those books, like I just can't stop but read it and look into like how deep have they developed their thoughts into this direction. And obviously, it also makes sense to kind of look into other to the other side. For example, you should always be kind of checking yourself, kind of balancing your thoughts out. And the mere fact that I could instantly access to the whole other spectrum, other side of the spectrum, and kind of look into how they think, how these would be kind of making their conversations had they were given a chance to kind of sit together and talk with each other. So I think those kind of experiences very transformational for me. Um, yes, I think those two things is what kind of how I would define reading and what really motivates to kind of look for other books.
100%. Yeah. Because I also think that like just by paying $10 to $20, like you're able to attain a lifetime work of
Exactly. Yep.
yeah,
Yep.
someone's expertise.
Hmm.
And I think in terms of the cost efficiency and the effectiveness, it's
Hmm.
like it's just like why not? Like
Yeah.
why wouldn't you buy a book and read it?
Hmm.
But in the sense that it's so much rewarding compared to its cost, why do you think not a lot of people indulge in books these days?
Well,
I won't
because
say indulge, yeah.
obviously because the advent of like smartphones, I think that had a huge impact like on how we interact with new information, how we allocate our time in terms of what we do in our daily lives. Just having those like quick access to all
Hmm.
these like
Hmm.
instant gratification, all these new information, all these photos of people, good foods, like phenomenal pictures and whatnot. I think that's first of all, and that's also the same case for me as well, because I stray off quite a lot, like and frequently to social network services, to YouTube, for example, and whatnot, all these videos, which are also a good source of learning, source of information as well. Yeah, so I think that is number one reason for the recent generation, for our generation, I'd say. But moreover, I mean, the reading is a very painful process, and you need to kind of always be thinking, kind of relating what the previous sentence has in relation to the next
Hmm.
sentence, how the previous paragraph has relations to the next paragraph, and how the whole book kind of relates itself. And you need to kind of keep asking the questions, keep looking for the answers, and try to like move on with that conversation, kind of carry on the conversation, which is a very, very strenuous process, I'd say. Um, yeah, I think that's pretty much it. That's my interpretation of it. Yep.
Do you write in your book while you read?
I mostly try to
Like in the book, like do you take
in the
notes?
book, in the
You,
book.
oh,
Yeah.
you do?
So I mean, that's the best case. I mean, I would say that I don't do it like for every single books. But one thing for sure, if I do have a book on my own that I have not lent out or I mean borrowed out for or anything, I always like draw lines, underline the quotes that I want to read. I try to like put post-its so that I just keep track of the important kind of paragraphs or important sentences that I want to come back to. And I guess most importantly, I think the most important part in terms of interacting with the book is like writing down the questions or writing down like your thoughts as you go along. Because those questions sometimes, yes, sometimes or sometimes not, they get answered throughout the book, right? So it's kind of fun, kind of looking for those answers to your previous questions, either in that same book or either in other books as well.
Hmm.
And it kind of expands. And it is definitely a very important and a very precious skill to kind of have to ask the right questions at the right moment and also like kind of contain your questions so that you have a good sense of like where you want to go, where you want to direct yourself, and where you want to allocate your time, right, in terms of what you want to read. Because you have
Hmm.
to be very, very strategic and in terms of what kind of things you're going to read, which chapters you're going to read, which paragraph you're going to read, and when. So yeah, all those things kind of have to work out. It's a very hard process,
It
and I'm not
is.
sure if I'm doing a good job as well. But it's a very fun process at the same time. So I've been enjoying it.
Yeah. Very interesting. Yeah. I totally like I'm not that much of a heavy reader, but like I remember like when I think of you, like when I recall a memory of you during our like school, middle school, high school, I think you always had a book. It was
Really?
always near you. Like it was within like 3 feet from your bound from you. And
Interesting.
I think that habit of always having a book next to you is what made you a person, right? This
And
influence to
very
read more.
interestingly enough, which would make a grand kind of finale to this podcast is I think that habit came from my mom, actually. And I think my
Nice one.
mom definitely kind of prompted me to whenever
Shout out
we're, I
to
don't
shout out to your mom.
know, Mrs. Moak, I love you.
Me
And
too, me too.
yeah, for sure, for sure. So, yeah, I think that was one of the things that she always told me. Like whenever we go to a hospital or whenever we go out to some, I don't know, school or whatnot, like to museums, she would always tell me to bring a book and have it like just and read it whenever I had like a waiting time, like 5 minute, 10 minute or so. So that stuck with me, I think, for sure.
Definitely. Yeah, so we are heading into our finale of our podcast. So I think it's time to ask uh the podcast trademark question, which is Remy, what is your favorite quote?
My favorite quote, obviously, it has also been flowing. Yeah, it's changed a lot. But most interestingly enough, I came back to one of the quotes that was like my guiding quote during my high school years. And it is this quote by Jack Welch. Face reality as it is, not as it was or as you want it to be. And back then, I think this quote was more in the sense of like you should focus on like where you are at, like where your academic capacity is, and you should always try to improve day by day, year by year. And I kind of strayed away for the last 5 years or so. And I think I was more dwelling in the realm of like what I want to be and kind of exploring what I want to do as opposed to like facing reality as it is. And these days I'm kind of realizing that like I kind of have to come back to kind of measure myself to put me or kind of yeah, see me under a certain kind of yardstick, certain standards, and kind of evaluate myself every single day, try to improve, um, look into the things that I'm bad at, look also into the things that I'm good at, and leverage that if possible, if I could. So I think facing reality is one of the most hard parts. And at the same time, I think it's very hard because I think imagination is a very human specific capacity. And like building out into the future, like imagining things, like for example, like science, like SF novels and those kind of things. I think those are the qualities that are very specific to humans. They're not really in other animals or like other or dogs or monkeys. Maybe some in monkeys, but and that's what makes it very hard for us to kind of see the reality as it is, because that's also what makes us human. But at the same time, we also have to come back to reality and evaluate ourselves very objectively. And that's the thing that I've been trying to put myself into, that I've also been kind of struggling to do these days. So yeah, to sum it up, face reality as it is,
Hmm.
not as it was or as you want it to be.
Yeah. It's simple, but I think it's very powerful. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And like reflecting on reflecting responses and the reality as it is, I think that's also an important part that you mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's very thought provoking, insightful. Nice. Yeah, Jake, thanks for sharing that. I
Am I
think.
Jake? Am I JK or am I
Oh, I'm sorry.
Remy?
I'm sorry. I call him Jake. That's like my nickname for him. Remy, thanks for sharing. So
Yeah.
I think it's
Thank-
time
mhm.
we should wrap our podcast. So to those listening out there, thank you so much for tuning in. And Remy, thank you so much for taking the time. How was the podcast? How was it?
I mean, obviously, I'm so grateful that you took out your time to arrange all this. I think it definitely made me ask myself as well, like, what are the roots that kind of that constitute my mindset? Like, what is guiding me? What are my guiding principle? And I think it's very delightful to have this conversation with you. Thank you.
Yeah, glad to hear that. Yeah, glad to hear that it was beneficial and helpful for you in many ways. So I appreciate it, and thank you for calling the show. For the listeners, we will bring you more content with more guests on the next one. So stay tight and see you soon. Thank you.